So, welcome to our circle call for May. I'm very excited to see you. And hello. And I'm so glad to talk to you today because I have a lot of good news and certainly worth talking about preparing for the solstice too. So, that's what we're going to focus in on when I'm transmitting this morning for you, or perhaps it's afternoon or evening for you, either way. And one of the things that's been coming up lately is some questions around the Earth and the dimensions. I've got several questions about that. So I'm going to speak for about 30 minutes and then we'll go ahead and start talking and do some chatting, and perhaps we'll be able to help you with whatever's going on in your life, and definitely want to hear what's happening for you. So I'll give you an update about what I've been seeing. And the first thing that I've noticed is that this level of formlessness that the Earth is bringing online is very interesting. And, we talk about embodiment a lot, or at least I do. And embodiment is tricky when you talk about formlessness. How can you embody formlessness? That sounds crazy. Well, it's not that you embody formlessness, it's that you make room for more light. So we build our capacity for light. That's the whole point. That's the job. And our job is no different than the Earth's. The Earth is here to build capacity for light as well. And that's what she's doing. She's moving and shifting incredible amounts of density out of the way so that there's room for more light. And what kind of density is she shifting? Well, she shifted the matrix in 2017, the physical fourth dimensional matrix. She's been shifting lots and lots of different densities off of her energy field, all kinds of different historical energies. So, if there was a war, perhaps, then the Earth is shifting that energy off of her field, making room for more light. And that's what the sort of embodiment of higher dimensional light is all about. And our bodies are no different. So the DNA, when we're reprogramming our DNA, we're really just tossing out all the density in the egoic structure that we don't want to make room for more light. That's the job. So we're bringing in all of what is available in many dimensions. And then that leads to, well, what's going on with dimensions? The dimensions didn't go anywhere. All 12 dimensions are available at all times. It's a mathematical piece here. Dimensions aren't rooms that you walk into and then you leave another dimension. That's not how it works. So physics is very important to understand how the physics of dimensions work. And the physics of dimensions are that they are layers of reality. Now, there's layers of 3D reality as well as layers of dimensional reality. So if you perhaps took my quantum remote viewing class recently, we went on a journey into layers of 3D reality. But there's also layers of dimensional reality, and those dimensional realities make available certain types of light, certain more formless types of light, because you're getting closer to source. So it gets brighter and more refined, more formless. But that's the trick, is that all of that's available. Our bodies are literally built to receive all those different kinds of light. So, for example, your brain has 12 dimensional structures. We know that. We've seen it in a microscope. And that means that your brain is capable of receiving 12 dimensions of information. And that's amazing. DNA itself We see structures of DNA in a microscope, but that's just the third dimensional structure. There's other dimensional structures involved in our DNA, which means that we are capable of embodying all 12 dimensions of light and receiving information from those dimensions all at once. So when you embody a new dimension, you didn't leave any other dimension behind. You're adding in another receptive piece that's already there. You're activating a receptive piece of your embodiment, your experience. You're turning that back on. We come into these bodies and we don't have access to that because our bodies and our DNA maintain a lot of dense, nasty, old historical trauma. So our DNA has all this trauma written on it, and it's very heavy stuff. It makes it very difficult to receive very refined light from all these different available dimensions. So when we say that the Earth is ascending, what we mean is that she's making available those layers of light for herself and for us, because, hey, we're along for the ride, right? So she's making available that light right now. She's made available the angelic realms. She's made available the 8th dimension, the dimension of total and pure understanding. And she's going to be making the 9th dimension available. That's what the next solstice, the summer solstice and winter solstice for Southern Hemisphere, that's what this next solstice is all about. So she's not leaving the 3rd dimension. And we're not ever going to leave the 3rd dimension. That's not the job. The job is to be grounded in the 3rd dimension and have available to us all that information, all those layers of light from all the dimensions all at once. Original humans were quite capable of doing that. And through lots of trauma and lots of subjugation, 500,000 years of it, we lost our ability to do that. That's why the original humans lived for so long. They had so many layers of light available to them at all times. And in the ancient text, it talks about how the ancient people actually spoke to God, right? So that's another term for being able to communicate directly to the source field, which is your birthright. You have a birthright to be able to not only receive information from all dimensions, but communicate directly to source without any blockages. That's what we're trying to attain, remember. And that's the job. So this is really a special topic because out there's a lot of information about dimensions. And there's an idea out there that we're going to leave 3D in these bodies and ascend and be in a higher dimension and stay there permanently. And that's not at all what will happen. So we want to be clear and realistic about the physics of ascension. And that's why we're here. So what does this mean? The 9th dimension is coming online. Well, the 9th dimension is Christ consciousness. And we've had a taste of it before. We've had a taste of that dimension when the Earth shook off, with a lot of extra help, the physical 4th dimensional matrix that was built around her. It was a false grid that kept her quite separated from all the other grids available. There's lots of grids in layers, and they're all connected. They all use the same format, the golden ratio. And so the golden ratio is a key. It's a key in your own body to be able to reconnect to grids that are available. And what are those grids? They're like a web, a multidimensional web that allows information to travel into different layers of reality. So for example, there's a human consciousness grid, and we're trying to get that back online with the Earth, the global grid, right? And we're going to also need to get it back online with the galactic and universal grid. So we attained global consciousness about a decade ago. Doesn't seem like that long. We attained global consciousness, and now that's not done. We have more consciousness to attain. We're going to attain galactic consciousness and intergalactic consciousness and universal consciousness. And that will mean that we will be very conscious all day long about the layers of history and reality that we're really part of. We didn't stop being part of those layers of reality. We just haven't fully embraced them in our consciousness since the beginning of our experiment here. So that's something you can be working on. Use this next wave of energy to reconnect your consciousness to the galactic history that we are so intimately a part of. Use this next wave to help you reconnect to the intergalactic history that we're a part of. We have many galaxies that we've interacted with, and we're even combining with Andromeda very soon. And that's going to change the face of our planet. It all affects one another. And then there is, of course, the universal consciousness. What does that look like? That means that you're acting every day with a consciousness and awareness that you're not just on a planet, but that you're in a galaxy that has a relationship with other galaxies, and that you are in this universe, and that that's a constant state of consciousness for you. It's like a lens that you'll look through to see the world. And how does the world look when you're looking through galactic consciousness? How does it look when you're looking through universal consciousness? Play with that idea. You'll be surprised at what you'll see. So how can we really use this next wave exactly? And what will it do for us when we use the benefits of the ninth dimension? Well, the ninth dimension is merciful. We had that taste when the Earth shifted the matrix off and reconnected herself back to the galactic and universal grids. And we had mercy appear to help us. And it's something that we weren't expecting, many of us, at least me. I was all ready for some kind of wild ride. I had no idea what to expect, honestly. I just was prepared for battle. And then, instead of battle, I was asked to remove all my armor, to set down my swords, to be done with that part of my identity, and to be able to fully embrace vulnerability. And you've seen that. Us spending time together, you can see that vulnerability is really important to me, and it's important to all of us. So vulnerability is key here. It's part of what will help create equanimity on the earth. There's several energies that need to come online for us to have true equanimity. One of them is vulnerability, humility, and being able to, of course, step into total and pure neutrality, and of course, unconditional love. So many factors that go into equanimity, and that's the next state that we'll be functioning in. When we live in a world with equanimity as our foundation, we're going to be able to merge with one another's fields to create new fields of information. There won't be any more competition because the uniqueness of each individual will be so clear that you can't possibly compete with each other or anyone else, because simply each person is so different, so unique, and there'll be an appreciation of that first and foremost. It's like trying to make a turtle and a rabbit compete. It doesn't work, and we've tried that already. Instead, in equanimity, we'll be collaborating. And it doesn't mean you'll collaborate with everyone. You'll collaborate with the right people. And how will you know the right people? to collaborate with because they'll be emanating similar light. They'll have shifted any lenses that they've run their light through. And you can see that pure essence. And then you'll be attracted to it. They'll be attracted to yours. And then it creates a new level of light through a merger. So that's really important because that's a good glimpse of what we're shooting for, right? So what can you do to use this energy of the ninth dimension? Shift your identity out of the way. Identity is like lenses that you run your light through. And by golly, I have had a lot of identity. So, for example, I always enjoyed very much calling myself an anthropologist. I was very proud of my 10 years of college and all that work and the 2 degrees I earned. And I'd run my light through that. And boy, it was sure annoying for people around me because that wasn't my true essence. And so they would see, oh, Elizabeth's just narrowed down her whole identity to just being an anthropologist. Whether they consciously judged it or not, it didn't matter. But I even had many friends say that it was annoying. So, thankfully, I had very honest friends. But you'll want to shift your identity out of the way so your pure essence can come through. That's one of the things we can shift out of the way. Always working on egoic structure. Always. Looking at attachments, expectations, judgment, and resistance. And resistance is probably the hardest one because we don't always realize we're resisting something. You can pretty much catch yourself if you're judging or expecting or attached to something. But resistance is tricky. Resistance will stop you from being able to make room for more light, to build your capacity for light. So always kind of tap into that. Check in with yourself. Am I resisting anything right now? Do I feel any tension in my body? Do I feel any physical pain that might be an indicator of resistance? And then identity. How do we move identity out of the way? Well, first you have to be clear about what it is. So it's good to write down your identities. And that might be your career that you've chose. For my list, I put everything on there. So I started in the beginning. I was like, okay, I was an Army brat. You know, these are terms that I used to define myself. I was an Army brat. I'm the oldest of 7 kids from a Byzantine family. I was an anthropologist, a mother, a wife, a cat owner, a dog owner, a farm owner, a house owner. All these different terms, right, that we might use to define ourselves. And yours might be a nice long list. Once you put it out there in front of you, you've objectively understood your own identity. And then you can shift it consciously through ritual. Ritual's quite handy for this, and humans are good at creating ritual. We use ritual to get out of all sorts of situations. And there's a reason why humans have been doing ritual since the beginning, because it works. It works to create a shift. It works to create a new situation. And in this case, it'll help you to shift identity out of the way so that you can just try to function from your pure essence. It's not going to be perfect. It will take time, but it's got a month before we have a whole solstice to happen. So that's a good amount of time, plenty of time to work on not running your light through layers of identity. So in this ritual, you're going to take this paper that you've written all of your identities on, and you're going to do something with it. Maybe you'll fold it into an origami boat and set it free on a river. Maybe you'll light it up in a fire. Maybe you'll bury it in your garden. Whatever you want to do, use the elements. Use what types of pieces of ritual that make you happy. don't feel like it has to be a specific ritual, because it doesn't. It just needs to have some kind of meaning for you. So if that meaning is taking your identity and turning it into a paper airplane and setting it free in the wind, go for it. And then you say goodbye. You say goodbye to your identity, and you might even grieve. For me, I even put my name, my full name, at the top of the page, and I say goodbye to Elizabeth. Doesn't mean I stop being myself, but I don't attach my identity to being Elizabeth anymore. Now I attach it to just being an immortal soul who has a certain essence, and I work with that essence. Now you might wonder, how can you find out what your essence is? The essence of you will show up in aspects of your life as an undercurrent. So for my essence is wonder. I function in wonder at a very high level. So whenever I'm in a state of wonder, that's when I have access to my truest self and my truest and most pure light. And so being wonder is my essence. And you can hear that when I talk about subjects that I love, because I'm always amazed. And I can talk about the same subject a million times and never stop being amazed. And that's wonder for you. But it's always been there underneath everything I've ever done. Amazement that I could play the piano. I taught myself to play the piano, and I've been playing for 30 years. And even just the other day, I was listening to some recordings of my piano playing, and I was just amazed. So that's always been there. Always that amazement. Hey, I made that? That's so cool. Hey, I did that? Hey, that's an interesting new idea. Or, hey, that completely changed my ideas about what I thought I knew. Good. If you're in a sense of wonder all the time, new information that might break open your belief systems is going to be awesome. So, what is your essence? Look at the undertow of your life. There's some essences that I've been looking at, because I've been sort of trying to look at essence. And this essence is when the consciousness of a human being, or anything really, shifts away from source. It doesn't separate from source, because that's a ray of light always connected to source, right? But just away from source is where the essence is defined. So it's sort of like that ray of light. Well, that one is green, or this one is yellow. They're all from the same place, and they all are connected to source still, but they're differentiated in their attributes, and each one is unique. So there's lots of people with wonder as their essence, but there'll be a particular wavelength of wonder. Mine will be different and unique, and so will yours. Some of the essences I've been looking at were alignment. Alignment is an essence. Radiance. Beauty. Those are some that I've been seeing lately. And I've been practicing looking at essence just for a short time. So obviously there's going to be a lot of different essences. Worthwhile looking at that and discovering it. I'd like to know what yours is. What do you think yours is? And if you can define it or sort of look into it, then you're getting to know your own soul better. And that's amazing. That allows you to function from that state, and that is your true self. And that shines brighter, better, more pure light out in the world, and that attracts the right people in the right timing for you to collaborate with. And that's how we're going to gain access to all 12 dimensions as a species. So use this time, this month before the solstice, because we're going to meet after the solstice. Use this time before the solstice to prepare for another level of formlessness. And it's tricky too, because, formlessness isn't necessarily something that you're going to notice coming online because it's formless, right? So when the 8th dimension came online, all these changes were happening and everyone's like, whoa, where'd that come from? And that's because it's formless, so you wouldn't have necessarily noticed it. But it certainly has made some changes. I'll tell you what changes have happened for me. Maybe you can relate. I have been having an incredible amount of premonition and very powerful premonitions that are so detailed that they're a bit mind-blowing for me. So I'll give you some examples. Since the solstice, or the equinox, so spring equinox, since then, I've had 3 very major, intense premonitions. The first one was that my horse, I have a pet horse who's a miniature horse, that my horse would hurt her eye. Horses do this a lot, and they nose around and stuff, and if you have one wonky part of your fence, they'll find it. And she hurt her eyelid, and it was the exact eye that I saw would get hurt. It was her right lower eye. And so she hurt her eyelid, and it took us a lot of effort, but we did get it healed fully. She's all fine, but I knew it was going to happen, and then it in detail. And I've never had such incredibly detailed premonitions in this way. I'll get little flashes and stuff, sort of like if you were to walk on a road with millions of mirrors lining it. Occasionally I'll get a reflection of something, just a little flash, and then later it'll appear in full and I'll be like, oh, that's what that was. So I'm always in a state of deja vu a good amount of the time. But this was a whole nother level. This was formlessness leading to timelessness. So that's something we're going to need to be really conscious of. Time is going to get weirder. And that's exactly what's happened. So I had that premonition. And the second one was so detailed. I knew that the local police were going to call my house phone at 7 p.m. on a Thursday night. I mean, how detailed is that? So I'm literally sitting right here where I was sitting. My home phone's just over here. 7 p.m. rolls around and my phone rings on a Thursday night. And my husband had just left to go to the town near us. And so my hope was that nothing had happened to him. I didn't really know what the police were going to call me for. I just knew they were going to call me. So I went and I picked up my phone, and of course, it's the police. And they ask for someone who doesn't live here, thank God. And I must have sounded really funny because I was really excited that they had called me and that it wasn't because of my husband. So I was like, yep, nope, that person doesn't live here. And just, that was it. Then she said, sorry to bother you. I'm like, oh, you're fine. But it was really weird because I knew all the details except for why they were calling me, and it happened. And then literally the next day or a few days later, I'm sitting on my couch and I have this full body premonition, and it's full body. It's not just my mind, it's my whole body. And I literally felt my father had had a breakthrough and that I needed to call him. So I pick up my phone and I call my dad and I said, hey, how are you? And he said, oh, I'm so good. I just got out of therapy 5 minutes ago. And I've had a huge breakthrough. You want to know what happened? I was like, yes. And he said, I finally forgiven my father because his dad left when he was a kid, and that affected him incredibly. And that was so amazing that I could feel that, and that I knew that that had happened There was no separation between me and the police station and my horse and my father and their experiences. That's the kind of interesting, strange things that you can expect, perhaps, as you make more capacity for light. And when you build that capacity for light, all that formlessness leads to other levels of consciousness and energy. Formlessness leads to timelessness, and that's what I've been experiencing. It also leads to the universe containing all things, being able to be connected to that universal consciousness. So keep on this track. Keep working towards more capacity for light. You'll continue to move into formlessness, and then you'll reach timelessness, and certain things may occur in that, and then you'll reach universal and galactic consciousness. And then what's after that? Well, that's the most amazing part, because it doesn't stop. Then there's the multiverse. There's the void between the universes. The source field is not the creator of just one universe. The source field creates all universes. There is a multiverse level consciousness that we can access. And I haven't got there fully yet, but I suggest that you continue on this path, because it will unfold into something amazing. And certainly I'll keep you updated if I know anything about that. But I can definitely see that there's a multiverse level of consciousness that welcomes the power of the void. When you look at the void, it's the space between universes. That's where there's no creation. So inside of a universe, there's no vacuum. There's only always incredible amounts of creation inside a universe. But outside the universe, it's when sort of the mind of source stops, and there's no creation. There's not even nothing. It's beyond nothing. That's why we call it the void. It's void of anything. And when you examine the void, your body and your spirit get kind of uncomfortable. Your ego definitely gets uncomfortable, because that is non-existence. And of course, the body and the spirit want to exist. So what it does, if you're willing to not resist the power of that, is that you'll have full body gratitude. The first time I saw the void, it scared me so bad. I just kind of freaked out for a whole week. Because my ego was just a mess. It did not like the void, and it shook me up. And so I stopped resisting it, and I surrendered to it. And what I found was an incredible level of gratitude that I'd not experienced before, a gratitude for existing that now is encoded in my daily life. So I'm so grateful to exist. I'm so grateful that when I leave this body, that energy is going to be recycled into this universe, that I'm loved so much, that I am imagined into existence every moment, and that I'm loved so much that no aspect of my energy or existence or body will ever be wasted. That's actually the beauty of the law of destruction. It's proof that we are loved, because we are fully recycled into this universe every time. And we continue to exist and be imagined into existence. And that level of gratitude is very precious. It can help you to be grateful for all experiences, even the really crappy ones, and be able to learn from them and not resist going into challenges. So here we're at that 30 minutes or so that I promised I'd speak and transmit this light, this learning to you. And I hope it's going to be helpful for you. But I'd like to know, how are you? How are you? What's new in your life? Type in the chat, or you can type into Q&A. And so Belinda says, in theta healing, we go into the 7th plane to talk to the Creator. This is what we've been taught. If the 9th plane is Christ consciousness, then what's the 7th plane? Is the theta healing outdated, so to speak? Oh, I think there's lots of different ways to look at dimensions, and there's not just only one way. And honestly, if we're going to be really fair about physics, eventually we're not going to talk about dimensions anymore at all. We're going to talk about layers of reality. We'll have different terms as we go along. And the fact that we've numbered how many dimensions there are, well, eventually that's going to be arbitrary, because it's not like they're rooms that are separated from each other, remember? It's all more like one thing. And it's very hard for our brains to wrap around that, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is the quality of light. So, for example, if someone's saying, I'm going direct to source, well, it doesn't really matter what dimension that is in. If they're choosing to, with intention, talk to the Creator, well, then that's what they're choosing, and it doesn't matter what name they have for that space. In every culture through history, humans have tried to name this stuff. Whether that's successful or not, it doesn't matter. Again, for example, in ancient Tibetan tradition, they don't talk about dimensions so much as they talk about worlds. There's the world of magic, there's the world of false light, and then there's the world of true light. And all that kind of makes sense. It's all connected in one way or another. If we were to be truly honest, most of what we're talking about is outdated, and we just simply haven't fully connected all the dots yet. But that's the cool part, is that we're the writers of the next books. We're the writers of the next ancient books. We get to create the new names for things. We get to try to keep things relevant and update topics. We're combining science and spirituality, which is a tough job, but if we are going into that mindset, well, scientists come up with new jargon all the time to be able to explain new concepts and new ideas the way that they've evolved. So the truth is that we're going to keep evolving the way we're talking about light, dimensions, etc., ascension for a very long time. It's not going to be stuck in one place. Let's kind of flow with that, right? So, if they're going to use 7 gateways to get to the Creator, awesome, no problem. If other mathematicians say, well, there's not just 12 dimensions, there's 24. Sure. Break it up more. It doesn't really matter in the end. What matters is that we're doing the work that we're asked to be doing, which is building more capacity for light. That's what matters. Raising our consciousness to connect to layers of reality that are important, so that we can ascend as an entire species and step into the role that we're called to step into. Emissaries, intergalactic emissaries of unconditional love and compassion. That's what we're going to be. We're going to spend time in lots of different galaxies, meeting all kinds of amazing beings, helping to create peace and pave a way for compassion and peace. That's the job, eventually, that we will attain. So that's what we're shooting for. And hey, that requires us to make sure we're right with the Earth. We can't leave this planet and go hopping in galaxies unless we're right with the Earth. We can't leave this home a mess. So, hey, we've got lots of work to do. Great. All right. So there's a good question here from Laura. She says, could you say more about alignment as an essence? So alignment as an essence is basically that soul, that soul enjoys aligning with different layers of reality. And so if you feel wonky being a human, that's one layer of reality. We might sort of akin it to a washing machine that's off kilter. And if someone's here on this planet and their essence is alignment, they're going to be very conscious of that off kilterness. And so that person's going to want to keep harmonizing their life with the earth, with the solar system, with the galaxy, so that there can be an alignment of pure light that moves through everything they're doing and saying. So alignment will show up in that person's life as different kinds of experiences, such as not feeling comfortable with the collective's energy, not feeling comfortable being a human, always trying to align themselves with a higher consciousness, not necessarily the collective. So that person will be very sensitive to the collective's consciousness and what might be going out of alignment. It's kind of like a harmonizer. So a harmonizer, their job is to bring more harmony, right? But the harmonizer is going to notice when things are out of harmony more than anything. And alignment, the essence of alignment is similar to that. You're going to notice when things are out of alignment more than you would when they are in it. You'll feel really good when things are in alignment, and you'll want to remain that way. Just like if a harmonizer's got everything in harmony around them, they're going to want to remain that way. It feels good. It feels higher consciousness. It feels more high vibe. So kind of clue into that for your life and check that out. If you might be in an alignment essence or a harmonizer essence, you're going to notice when things are wrong more than anything. And then you might feel guilty about that because, people judge themselves for noticing all the stuff that's wrong, but that's actually your job. And whether you can do or say something about it, it's one thing. You can always spiritually align yourself. If you can align yourself, then you'll watch more light pour through and shift things around you. So that's a little brief talk about that particular piece. And then Maggie's asking, if I know all these fantastic movements are happening in our world and the cosmos, and I'm not feeling or seeing or experiencing any changes in my own life, am I stuck? Am I not surrendering enough? No, you're not stuck. Nothing's ever truly stuck. The stuckness is something we think about from a human level. Oh, that person hasn't made any changes. They're stuck. But changes are constantly happening. But Maggie, it's key to focus inward, to focus inside you, and look at the density that's not allowing your essence to flow through. That might be trauma. That might be all sorts of expectations about yourself too. Do you expect certain things, certain experiences? Drop them. Any attachments you might have, even attachments to outcomes. Staying in the present is very key here, because that's your entry point in every moment. All your power is in that moment. Keep doing processing, mental, emotional, physical processing. Keep meditating. Don't stop cleaning up your DNA. Command energy out of the way that isn't you, isn't serving you, and welcome in more light. Don't give up. Keep doing it every day. Be consistent about this. Spend time on it. Be serious about your work on yourself. That's where the changes will occur. That's when the experiences start to happen for you. Don't look outside yourself for those things. Look inside. That's key. And so Caroline says, I'm so very grateful to be here listening and hearing. I feel so blessed and special that I'm here on my journey. I'm glad you're here too. I have had so many premonitions, police around the corner, slow down, car will come to your next lane, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. I'm open, I am light, I am love. I am love with identities. Yeah, so lots of different identities. And I will release identities. Thank you. So very good. And so Carolyn also says, I long for more time and more money. And so what is time and money if we're longing for it? Time and money is energy. A dollar bill is no different than a hammer. And the way that we use it is very key. You can't use a hammer to open up a jar of spaghetti sauce. You can't really use a dollar to create happiness. So when we say we long for more time and money, we're longing for energy. Find ways, Carolyn, to move anything out of the way, any density out of the way that blocks you from a sense of infinite value. So in order to fully break free from the spell of money, we need to value time, we need to value energy infinitely. We can value people, places, and things for their true worth, which is infinite. Start with that. Shift your mindset from valuing everything in terms of money to an infinite value, and then use money as a tool. And the money will then show up in its way to be a tool. You don't want money so it'll sit there. What do you really want to spend that money on? What will you spend that money on? What will you use that energy to bring into your life? That's what you'll want to consider. So when we say, I want more money, for what? So it can sit in a pile? No, definitely not. To pay bills? Yes. To eat? Yes. To be able to have a roof over your head? Absolutely. To be able to have fun in your life? Yes. Think about those things and how infinitely valuable they are. And then look at time. Time is something that is an incredible and very flexible part of our existence. If you're remaining in the moment all the time, you don't feel like you don't have enough time. It's only when we're worrying about the future or past that we feel like we don't have enough time. So another mindset shift. The ideas around time. What you're pinging is actually programs that have been placed in human consciousness to stop us from being able to connect to the infinite. So that's really important to notice those. They're the 5 fields of limitation, and I'll name them. False value, like money, and we want infinite value. False concepts about time. A good slave worries about the past and future. Instead, we need to be in true time, in the moment, always, where all the power is. The false use of energy, we're taught to just gobble up energy without any mindfulness. Instead, we want to have mindful use of energy with great gratitude, right? So I'm going to take a sip of my tea. It's in a very large cup that looks like a beer stein, but it's not beer. It's just tea. But if we were to do that mindfully, right, I'd take the tea and I'd think about all the different beautiful tea plants that gave me access to the tea, and all the workers who worked so hard to pick the tea and grow the tea, and all the people who made the tea bags, and how everyone packaged it into boxes, and all the people that touched those boxes, and then how all those boxes got put on shipping containers and all the people involved in that, and then bringing myself back into the loop, the cycle that helped me attain my tea. That's mindful use of energy. I welcome and with gratitude every single part of the cycle that got me my tea. And you can do that with everything around you as a mindset shift. And then we have the false program around the fear of death. Human beings are so afraid of death. We're the only ones who fear death like we do. My animals don't consider death constantly, yet humans do constantly. And that's not a good way to live. That leaks a lot of energy and creates fear. So true energies around death is actually the celebration of destruction, just like I was talking about earlier. That destruction is proof the universe cares about me, about you, and recycles our energy, never wasting any part of our existence. And then the last field of limitation is this false idea that we're not meant to remember stuff. I've been seeing it for ages, all this talk about how we come in with these contracts and we're not supposed to remember, and that's just not true. What we come into are bodies full of lots of dense energy that keep us from remembering and accessing our light. Those identities, the trauma written in our DNA from our ancestors, it's really hard to remember who you are when all that density is in the way because you can't see it. You don't experience it. When you shift layers of dense energy out of your DNA and you keep working on egoic structure, you will remember more. You'll remember more lifetimes, you'll remember more information, and you'll tap into the source field directly all the time. That's literally what's happened to lots and lots and lots of measurable experiences. And that's how we're going to get out of this whole false idea that we're not meant to remember. We're going to shift that out of the way by shifting any density and egoic structure out of the way, and then you can tap into your true essence more fully. So that's absolutely key to remembrance. And I can attest to this. I've worked very hard on my DNA, and I remember more and more every day. And I never stop. I remember more and more every day. I know my own essence from my own work, not because someone told me that, but because I moved all kinds of junk out of the way and I got access to it. And that's what you can do too. Good. Okay, so I'm still looking at the questions for you. So we have someone mentioning, I wonder what's the best way to connect with my next right step, or should I let it appear before me? Oh, that's very nice. So how can we connect to our next right step? Well, we need to be able to fully have good quality discernment. We need to connect to our brain mind's capability to look at pros and cons. We need to connect to the heart's ability to feel energy and feel into nuances of energy. And also the heart's ability to have maintained perfect body memory, because the brain doesn't maintain that, the heart does. And then the gut's ability to help you with deep intuition and knowing. So in order to see your right step, kind of do some pros and cons around that with your brain mind. What are the possible right steps that I might take? This is the exact method I use to make decisions. So What are the possible right steps I might take next? Aside from the obvious, meditating, emotional processing, and being able to be in self-assessment all the time, right? Stay in the witness. Oh, wow, I just got triggered. Okay, that's all right. That's self-assessment. That's awareness. Oh, I don't know if that feels right. I'm not sure. That's okay. Then you're aware of how you're feeling and you're staying objective about it. So besides those are the obvious that everyone should be taking part of anyway. Well, there might be some possibilities for you to look at. So do some pros and cons about that with your brain. And then let your brain step aside. And then feel into it with your heart and ask your heart, dear heart, is this right next step? Maybe you have 5 or something, right? Is this the right next step for me, dear heart? And you'll feel it. Will it feel a nice, warm, opening yes or a contracting no? And then you'll keep looking at how each one compares. Then you'll ask the heart to step aside and you drop into the gut. Feel from the gut mind. The emissaries of the earth are there to help you to live in harmony with the earth. So if one of those steps is going to really help you to continue to live in harmony with the earth, then that one will feel really good and warm and bubbly and excited in your gut. If it's a no, then you'll feel a no or a flatness. And this takes practice. So in order to get ready for that bigger discernment piece for yourself about your right next step, practice a little bit. Think about different pros and cons and get your brain kind of revved up, worked up to be able to do that for you, because that's what the brain's really good at, pros and cons. Then practice asking your heart obvious questions. So obvious yes questions, obvious no questions. Do I love my cat? Of course. Do I like to eat rocks? Nope. And then ask those same questions of the gut. Obvious ones that you know the answer to. So you can feel, what does it feel like when my heart says yes? What does it feel like when it says no? And the same with the gut. Then you'll go in and start asking questions you don't know the answer to. Should I eat this or this? What does my body need right now? Should I take this supplement or this supplement? I'm not sure. So then you'll test it out with your heart and your gut. This is how I'm constantly making decisions. I'm using my body as a machine to serve me, to help me make the right decisions, and to know what my next step is. So use your brain to suss out possibilities, do the pros and cons, feel into it from your total body memory and the energy of feeling from your heart, and then divine knowing from the gut. And then you'll get a clear answer. So play with that. Try that out and see if that works for you. It really works well for me, and so I hope that will be a very handy tool for you. So Laura makes a point about the essence piece. Sounds like they want to align with divine essence more than the collective. They're just hyper aware of the collective energies. Well, that's a type of empath, and there's many empaths that I call collective empaths. And so collective empaths are constantly aware of the collective. And you know what? The collective is often, most of the time, suffering. So it's not necessarily that the essence of alignment wants to only align with the divine. No, then they wouldn't have come here to be a human. It's that they want to help humanity and humanity's consciousness align with the divine. And that's what they came to do. So if they can do it in a human body, that helps the collective. And then we all can align with all the layers of information and light available. So just wanted to add my 2 cents on that. So Flower says, how do you work with predictions when the news is bad? I was talking to a friend and I heard that one of the students her daughter goes to school wasn't going to make it and no other details. The next week, my friend called to tell me one of the kids committed suicide. What is the process for this? What is our responsibility with predictions? That one's hard, and I absolutely understand how painful that must have been. I'm so sorry that happened. And so certainly I'll keep that young person in my spirit space so we can shine light on that young person and their spirit. But when it comes to bad predictions, I'll tell you a little story. This will help. When we receive information from the field, it is our responsibility to share that, whether it's difficult, bad, good, or all of the above. At one point in time, I was dating my husband. We weren't married yet. And I was in the car with his sister, her girlfriend. So it was the four of us and our dogs. And we were going to go on a camping trip. And we hadn't told anybody where we were going, which is dumb idea number one. And so here we are, we're driving to the camping trip, and we're going to this cabin out in the middle of the woods, out in the middle of nowhere of Montana. And so we were driving, and one of my angels appeared to me and said, "You need to stop this trip. You're going to get into serious trouble, perhaps grave mortal danger." And I said, "Man, you're making my life so hard. I don't want to tell everybody that we have to stop our trip. These folks don't even know me well yet. I don't know if they trust me with this stuff. I don't want to be super weird. I don't want to be the one who ruins the trip because my angel told me or whatever. Like, that sucks. I mean, I really like this guy and I want him to like me. Like, why are you doing this to me?" So I ignored him. Well, you can imagine what happened next. Our car, big, huge truck, got stuck in the snow. The night time came, a snowstorm came. We had to walk 4 miles in a snowstorm in 3-4 feet of snow, which is incredibly hard. We all got hypothermia. We all were hallucinating by the time we even found the cabin. We were lucky to be alive. The next day, well, actually, it was like later that night, we were all finally warm and not hallucinating. And I said, "This is all my fault." And they're like, "What?" I said, "This is all my fault. I could have stopped this from happening way earlier today on the road because I knew that we were going to get into trouble." They're like, "How could you know that?" "Because my angel told me." And if it had been a premonition, I would have said, because I had a premonition about it. And I said, "Please forgive me because I could have had us all killed." And they said, "Well, of course we forgive you." And I said, it's very serious to me that I've screwed up this bad because I really do very much want our safety. So long story short, I got into loads of trouble and learned the hard lesson because we almost all died, including our dogs. I learned that hard lesson. So next time a difficult premonition comes up, just drop into your heart and think about in that moment, how may I present this energy with the most compassion? So for you, Flower, if it was me, I probably would have dropped in and I would have said, I have this strange feeling about so-and-so. I'm concerned for their well-being. Is there something that we can do or I can do to be able to reach out to them and help them just know that we're thinking about them or something like that? Is there anything that I can do to reach out to this individual to serve them in some way? Maybe it's just writing them a little poem. Maybe it's just sending a prayer of sorts, or at least just saying, "Please let them know I'm thinking about them." It's the little stuff. And life is short. If we sit around worried about if we're embarrassed or not about the information we receive, well, that's not going to do any good. And certainly we won't have really tapped into the power of our gifts. And don't feel guilty about what you learned and the activities that happened. That's certainly not your fault. And could you have saved the day? We don't know. But in the end, now, if you can say anything or do anything at all, some kind of words of encouragement, or at least just putting it out there, then that's what you've done. You've put it out there so it didn't stay inside, even if it's just simply, I'm worried about this person, and saying that out loud, then you've put it out in the field, right? So that's something that is challenging. Yeah, sometimes we're going to get really bad info, difficult info. You're right. And what will we do about it? Well, don't be like me and keep your mouth shut. um, because that's certainly something I wished I hadn't done. I could have lived my life without that experience. Perfectly fine, thank you. So, all right. And so I'm looking at a different chat here. And so I just want to look at the questions that have come through here. So here's a good question. How do we know which dimensions we are in at a given time? It's different for everybody. So this is the interesting part. The way I might experience the fifth dimension is going to be totally different from yours, perhaps. And there might be some similarities. But that's the thing. You're just going to want to keep tapping into your soul's experience all the time. Like I said, it doesn't matter which dimension you've embodied. Like it's not a competition to see if you can embody one faster than another. Instead, put your focus on shifting density out of the way, shifting egoic structure and trauma, healing that so that you can have more capacity for light. And then interesting things will occur. Sometimes, again, similar to other people. So like the embodiment of the fifth dimension made me able to stay more in the present moment and made me conscious of all possibilities. But the embodiment of the fifth dimension for someone else, well, they might have all kinds of other different experiences from there. So that's actually, we want to make sure our mindset's focused on the right thing. Don't focus on which dimension you're embodying yet. That'll all come in its own time. Focus in on moving the junk out of the way so that you can embody any dimension. And then it'll start to become clearer and clearer, and you'll begin to have new experiences. And keep tabs on them. Your experiences are really important. Your experiences are not anecdotal. They are key to our existence. And your constant keeping tabs on them helps us to be better spiritual scientists. So that's why many different people, just noting their new experiences as they continue to shift density and egoic structure out of the way, will help us all. That's going to help everyone because you're going to have a unique experience. You are so unique that every experience of the dimension will certainly be incredibly unique for you. But that knowledge is a basis of knowledge that we can all appreciate. And then we'll be able to say, okay, well, I might have some of these experiences when I get to that point. And now I might look for those as I move more density out of the way to build my capacity for light. So, lovely comment here around Ka. She says, or they say, equanimity fosters a state of being in non-judgment. Either you'll collaborate together or you won't. No questions, no rejection. This encourages lots of experimentation and creativity. Absolutely. And that's what New Earth is built upon, the foundation of equanimity. And so non-judgment's in there too. That's one of those sort of facets that of the pie that we're building on here. Absolutely. just scanning through more questions here. M says, if I know all these fantastic, oh, we answered that already. Okay. Sorry, I'm behind on the chat. So Flo asks, when you meet the void and learn not to freak out, how does your physical body feel? So my physical body, when I'm looking at the void, which I look at a lot now because I kind of like it there. I like just the edge of the universe. So I'll put my consciousness there. There's two places I like to go that you wouldn't have caught me dead going to any of these places earlier in my life. And now they're my favorite. But it's the edge of the universe where I can look at the void in the multiverse because it's really cool looking. And then I feel full body gratitude for existence. And then the other place I like to go is into the inside of a black hole. So you can put your consciousness anywhere. You can put your consciousness in your fingertip. You can put your consciousness at the center of the galaxy. Inside of a black hole is very still. It's the most still place I've ever been. It's wonderful. Give it a try. And then I have full body stillness. And I sure like that. Full body gratitude and full body stillness. It's awesome. Yeah, so hey, Krista, you're not alone. Lots of people feeling wonky. And that's really challenging. So interesting question around dragons. You never know what questions will come through. Dragon energy. Well, I like dragons. Dragons traditionally have always been known as the embodiers and emissaries of many different sorts of wisdom and knowledge. And so if you're accessing dragon energy, you're accessing mastery, levels of mastery. And where does that energy come from? You know, I found it to sort of come from the dimension of ascended masters, so the sixth dimension. But some can come from higher places as well. So that's from my experience. Hopefully that's helpful to you. And so Enid asks, what are some things we can do besides diet and meditation to make room for more light? Interesting you mentioned diet. Certainly as we consume our food, and this is my take on things, when we consume our food, if we're consuming something that's been highly processed, there's not a lot of love that's gone into the creation of that food. But when we're consuming something that's less processed, there's a lot more capacity for light in that. And all food across the board is made of light. How much light does it have is a better question to ask. How much light does an organic apple grown on a local farm have? It's going to have a lot more light than applesauce in a jar that's been processed and put through a factory, right? But that doesn't mean that that applesauce isn't nourishing in some way, shape, or form. It's just not as full of light and pure, unprocessed energy. So that's a good way to consider diet to bring in more light in your life. How full of light is the food in front of you? How full of love? And you can always be adding more love and light into that food. When you're cooking it, or when you're slicing that apple, or when you wash the apple, or whatever you're doing, you can be actually weaving light into your food, weaving gratitude into your food, helping to eat it mindfully, connecting yourself to where that food came from with gratitude for the earth. That will bring in more light. So emotional processing, being very aware of your own triggers, mental and physical processing. So in order, it'd be awareness, mental, emotional, physical processing, meditation, and then we might add in mindfulness, And then another good and important way to bring in light is to ground yourself. So there's 4 ways that I think are the best ways to ground your energy. To be able to be barefooted on the planet in our natural state is very key. It's important. If you can do that even just for a little bit, there are great benefits to bringing in more light and building your capacity for light. The earth wants to help you with this. Sitting with a tree. Trees are huge transmuters of energy. Let them help you out. Salt water. So Epsom salt baths or salt water from the ocean. Salt water really helps to shift excess density and energy and let more light move through. And then lastly, we have the power of quartz. Quartz crystals are wonderful for helping shift dense energy out of your field. And so I actually have like this piece of flat quartz, and I'll lay it on my heart, and I'll have the quartz just shift and move dense energy out of my field for me. And we pick up this stuff all over the place. You know, you go to the grocery store and you're like a giant lint roller and you pick up dense energy. So this can help if you can't do the other 3 things. So that's some of the ways, the other extra ways that you can be building capacity for light. Be creative. I haven't discovered all the ways. Let's discover them together. Good. So, yes, Carolyn started listing off awesome things that she's going to use all the energy of that money to do, and I'm so glad. Keeping tabs on that. How does it feel then? Visualizing having paid off all that debt and help your daughters and grandkids and take your mom on a trip for a lifetime, retire and repair your home. Wonderful, excellent. And now hold that feeling of how those things might have happened for you. Hold the feeling of it in your field. That's going to help bring in the energies that want to help you to attain that. And just keep welcoming that timeline that you've put velocity behind in your heart space. Good. So we have Flo say, since I retired and I have some concern about money, I find myself wondering how much to give away. Yesterday, I stopped at the side of the road to hand a man my age, a jug of water I keep in my car and some stuff from my grocery bag that I just bought. He was so blown away by this small gift. I just knew the universe was telling me this was just perfect. And now I don't have to worry about being less generous. I can continue to be just as generous because seeing the response of this man to this act was so beautiful and such a merciful way of Source to give me an answer to my question about giving things away. So many kinds of things to give away. Now I can give my concern about the money to the universe to transmute. What a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing. And I suspect that you may have even saved that man's life. Sometimes it just takes the giving away of a small compliment to completely change someone's timeline. The giving away of a small touch on the shoulder. I live in a place where there's a lot of people who are not happy with their bodies. And I'll always try to give some kind of compliment to the people who look the most downtrodden. So the older obese lady who's obviously very sick, I might say, gosh, that's a really good color on you. Or I really love that sweater. Your shoes are really nice. Your hair is beautiful today. Something simple and meaningful from my heart. And that can shift incredible things. Now, also being an awareness of other people's souls can really shift things too. There's a subtle quantum shift that occurs when I don't look at someone in front of me as an obese, sick person. I see an immortal soul. and I attend to that. That's what my intention's on, not how they look or how they smell, but the attention is on their soul. Try that mindset shift and see what happens around you. Sometimes observing the right thing can bring it forth. So I'm observing their soul first, and that observation is very powerful. Don't underestimate the power of observing. If you can observe someone's soul and their light, then that brings it forth. It gives it permission to exist. And what a wonderful gift we can give if we're not able to share anything else. We can simply observe light. And that's a wonderful gift too. I love that. Lovely. Yes, so lots of different pieces around money blocks. I hope that our talks about that have helped today, and how to shift your mindset around money can really help a lot. And then we did cover discernment, so very glad that we covered discernment because that's really important. And discernment is something that is one of our greatest tools. And it's something I'm always working on to be better at discerning. So Suzanne says, I'm trying to let go of the pain and trauma of seeing loved ones pass away. What is the best alignment to replace these upset feelings? How do I bring the frequency of connection? Suzanne, don't deny yourself. Don't deny yourself the grief and the pain. Sit with them. Grief and pain, they need you to notice them. Give them a hug. Embrace them. Welcome them. Welcome them. What will happen is they're going to come into your life sometimes. Grief, pain, resentment, anger, difficult emotions. Don't resist them. Welcome them. Even give them a persona. Hug grief and let her just be with you. Hug sadness. Hug the resentment, the anger. Hug bitterness. Welcome them. What will happen is then they will be fully understood, and then they can dissolve. That's how you're going to shift. And grief will come to knock on your door some days. And you'll welcome her in. And you'll have some time with grief. And then she'll be done, and she'll dissolve again. Anger will come and knock on your door sometimes. Welcome anger in. Have a little chat. Give anger a hug and welcome it. It will be fully known, and then it can dissolve. So Daki has a good point here around my crazy story about the snow and everything. As per your story, sharing the information I receive is one of the most stunning ways that my identities reveal themselves. Ooh, handy. I appreciate your suggestions to bypass the distractions of my identities by simply asking myself, how may I present this energy with the most compassion? I've done just that and worked with the identities and programs later, but now I feel more superconductive as a light for myself and others. Perfect. So Daki's saying that that mindset has really helped. And so we can use her experience to help ground, okay, that's working. It's worked for more than one person now. So let's experiment with that. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Interesting question here. Megan says, do you notice your productivity changing by the moon cycle? I want to get better at planning my days and honoring the times of the month I'm more social or more creative or great at executing by the honoring of the natural monthly moon cycle as well as the quarterly cycles. time to plant, time to harvest, etc. Yes, absolutely. There's lots of layers of cycles, so we want to honor them all. Without getting overwhelmed, we just want to be conscious of them. So, for example, there are atomic cycles, there are molecular cycles, there are cellular cycles. Each organ has its own cycle, including your brain. Then, of course, the body itself has cycles. The feminine body is more affected by the moon, and the masculine body is more affected by the sun. And then there's, of course, global cycles, seasonal cycles, and then there's solar system cycles, all the way up to, of course, universal cycles. So by just being conscious of them and creating sort of a map for yourself of productivity, you can start to tap into that as your life's way of expressing your way to bridge being human with being part of nature and being universal. So absolutely a fun project to do would just to be kind of attending to your feelings and how your brain, heart, and gut feel each day, and then noting how that might look with the cycles. So I actually do have a calendar that has all the moon cycles and stuff. And while I haven't spent a lot of time mapping out my productivity necessarily, I definitely can tell when it's a full moon because I'm feeling more excited and anxious and sleepless and busy. And I can tell when it's a new moon because I feel sleepy and I just want to kind of stay in bed. So then I'll actually say, oh, I feel this way, because I'm clocking how I'm feeling, and then I'll actually look, oh, is it full moon time? So we all do actually kind of notice that stuff very subtly, but if you're more conscious about it, you'll see all the details and how they affect you, and that can be useful. Good, worthwhile doing that work, very fun. So Donna says, funny about the black hole and stillness. When I was in my 20s, I could meditate and I would go somewhere in the cosmos that was so beautiful and loving. What I would hold my intention to for several minutes in this space would manifest. A lot of neat stuff, relationships, career moves. So I know the field is there. I just wish to get back. So Donna, kind of tap into the energy of that space and think about the memories you have of the nuanced energies that were there. Write them out and see if they actually match anything that you know about clearly. And so, yes, absolutely. That's a space of that pure creative energy, right? And being able to tap into what's available, what's possible. Sounds very 5D to me, but also just what the universe is good at, right? So just look at the nuanced energies really deeply and name them, and then see if they match anything known to you now so that you can continue to go there and shift your consciousness there. Or perhaps you haven't been there in a while. And the thing is it's always accessible. So you're going to want to practice then shifting your consciousness. Try with other stuff first. So like shift your consciousness at a cellular level. What's it like to be in a cell? What's that feel like? What does it feel like to zoom out and look at the planet Earth like a little ball in front of you? What does that feel like? Keep playing around with how you can imagine your consciousness is somewhere. That's how we project consciousness, is by imagining it. So keep working with your imagination, Donna, and you'll get back to that place that you loved so much. So, very good question about kids. What are your thoughts about the new children who don't want to conform with certain societal or parental demands? They are in their own way, catalysts, and a lot of parents feel very challenged. Well, those are the kids pointing out several things, that the idea of going away from your home to go to a school to learn what a government wants you to learn is not a natural or healthy way for kids to learn. And this is coming from me having experience in all different forms of education, including private schools, public schools, and homeschooling. And so I, from an anthropological point of view, believe that our systems will absolutely have to completely change. I have no idea exactly what it's going to look like, but those kids are going to put pressure on the systems in place to change, to evolve, and they are going to grow up and be adults who will rebuild those systems to work better and in a more natural, harmonic way. If you are a parent with one of those kids, really listen to them. Just listen. You don't have to solve their problems necessarily. Sometimes you just need to mirror back what they're feeling. I hear you. You don't like school. You don't like to have to sit in a desk and all day long and do homework. You don't like having to take tests. I hear you. That's really special way that we can serve each other and those kids especially by really hearing them. If you take the time to just simply listen and mirror back what they're telling you and understand it, many things will shift and those children will often behave a lot better because they've been fully understood and heard. It doesn't necessarily mean they need you to fix the problem. Sometimes they just need someone to understand them. And that can work miracles because then they're going to be more willing to talk to you about problems they do need help with, right? That's my suggestion on that, having been one of those kids. Okay, so then Gail says, I'm a big fan of finding evidence of abundance in my life. The number of bulbs growing in the yard, the ants on the sidewalk, blades of grass. When I see abundance in my life, I find it in all areas. I share abundance so that I'm not holding it. Money moves in a flow. I ensure that there's flow moving in a positive spiral. Release the sense of grasping. Rather, receive and give, an abundant spiral. How beautiful. Receive and give in an abundant spiral. And you'll notice then, if you use that lens, that framework of thinking, there is abundance around me all the time, that you'll be able to see it, find it, and share it more easily. This is the art of psychic lenses, and we naturally do this, but it's a good, worthwhile study to see how does abundance show up in your life when you are aware of the fact that it's everywhere. And it's not just going to be in money, it's going to be in everything. And then that changes the energy flow and allows it to spiral. Nothing gets to stay. You receive joy, and then you will share that joy. You receive a compliment, share the compliment. When you receive an extra gift, you'll share in some other way. Share in different ways. Every time you receive, then use that as your opportunity to keep the flow going. What a wonderful mindset. And certainly will honor all the beautiful goods and materials and pieces of our life all the time. It's a wonderful way to honor it and be mindful of the use of energy. That would be a deep mindfulness practice. See how that helps in your life. Notice all the abundance around you already. Good. So Suzanne, who has just had kittens, well, actually, Sophia the cat has had kittens. And so Suzanne's been playing midwife, and it's been a very interesting journey. And I know about this little journey partially because we've been talking on Slack. So on the online membership for the circle, we get on the Slack platform. It's been quite fun and really beneficial for those who need support. If you'd like to look at that to work with this awakened community in a more daily format, including me, we can access one another on that Slack platform. Just check out that membership on my website. The Circle membership is $13 a month, and we do have scholarships. And that's a very special place where we can share our journeys, get support. We have a special healing circle that happens only on that platform on Saturdays, among other things. And we're doing a lot of beautiful, fun things together there. But Suzanne's been having quite an interesting journey here with her cat. So Sophia's had some kittens, and she's been trying to help the kitties settle in. So she moved her kittens. Sophia has moved her kittens in a panic, and Sophia's worried about their safety just before the call today, and it was an upsetting and chaotic to find them buried under boxes in the laundry area. I hope we are okay now. It's been a very stressful first week with the kitties. I was locked out of the house and had to pull off a sliding door to get back in. And so she asks, do you intuitively hear from your guides anything to share with us about how I can accommodate to help Sophia better? Well, my main thing for you, Suzanne, and I'm very glad to hear that there's an awareness unfolding. My thing for you is notice your heart field. So if your heart field's affecting Sophia, if you're worried and feeling stressed, Sophia's going to mirror that back to you. Animals are really excellent mirrors of energy. So if we have a stressed out dog or cat or kittens, it's often because we ourselves are worried from the inside out, and they can sense that. Keep kind of shifting your awareness into a state of calm, and you might use a heart command. So you could say, dear heart, please shift any dense or dark energies of lack of safety, insecurity, or lack of well-being out of my whole body and field now. And then take a big deep breath. And then you'd say, dear heart, please fill my whole body and field with an energy of safety, an energy of security, and a sense of well-being now. And then take another deep breath and keep doing that mantra as you're working with your kitty. You ought to see changes from her from that. So Megan asks a good question. When you're doing remote viewing out in a galaxy or across dimensions, do you do any invocation or protection? I'm constantly filling my field with more and more light very consciously, and that protects me wherever I go. So at this point, I haven't had any need to work on protection because I've already fully filled my field full of that much light every day, just a little more every day. And that's made such an incredible amount of energy in my field. Nothing's really able to get into my field unless it matches that energy. So I want to learn from energies and consciousness that are my equal or higher. And of course, yes, that doesn't mean we can't learn from people, places, or things that are not in that same energy. But when you're projecting consciousness, that's something to keep in mind. Just keep your field full of as much light as possible, and eventually the work on protection won't be necessary because you'll be so full, nothing can really get close to you. That's what I found in my experience. But I also believe that those years where I was invoking protection were really important. So I invoked the help of my angelic guides to protect me, and they did. And that was very, very important during my time while I was needing extra support. So I think there is a point in time when then you're so full of that light that it already naturally creates a protective barrier. And that's what we'd want to work towards. And don't underestimate unconditional love and humility. Those are two of the most protective energies. Unconditional love and humility. Ask your heart to fill your field with that love and humility, and that will really help protect you from interference that you don't want to happen. Good. And so Donna asks, do you believe in ascended masters, and how can they serve us? And so Donna, yeah, we'll check on your membership for you for Slack, because it's really a special place and I do want you to access it for sure. Yes, I do believe in ascended masters. And when a master ascends, they don't retain their identity, but that consciousness remains. So when we say, that we're connecting with, for example, the Buddha, well, the Buddha doesn't have that identity as a human anymore, but that consciousness is available. And usually I see those kinds of consciousness, ascended master consciousness or ascended being consciousness, like Pleiadian, Sirian, Arcturian, coming from the sixth dimension. That's where ascended consciousness kind of hangs out. It's like all the possibilities of ascended consciousness are there. So once you move out of the 5D, which is, or move deeper, if you want to say, the 5D is where all possibilities are, and then 6D is where all possibilities of consciousness is, and that's where the ascended master's consciousness remains. It's kind of like, if you wanted to put a visual to it, like a big hall, an endless hall of all the different varieties of ascended consciousness making themselves available to us. So yes, I think that's absolutely true, and hopefully all of us will get to be ascended consciousness masters too, and make ourselves available as well. That's a good goal, right? And how do you tap into that? Well, ask. Sometimes it's that easy. And so if we ask, hey, I want to connect with the consciousness of Jesus. I want to connect with the consciousness of this master that I know about, or this set of beings. I'd like to connect with that. Then we can ask in meditation, I'd like to connect with the consciousness of Jesus so I can commune with that consciousness. And what you'll find is that it's available because, well, all the dimensions are available, and they always have been. So then if we have a hard time connecting, don't worry about that. Just focus in on moving more density out of the way, and then you'll be able to connect more easily every time. So anytime you have trouble connecting to something or being able to perceive something, just work on your own inner house. Then there's more room for light, more room for natural perception that your body's capable of doing. That's all you have to do. Focus in on that. Good. Yes, that's right. Our animals are brilliant experts at reading energy. Use that knowledge to help you. Your animals can show you where you're at because they don't have any ego, and they can perceive all 12 dimensions of light. And so all those little kittens and all of your dogs and cats and animals, they perceive all those dimensions of light. They don't have any ego, so they're not blocked from that perception, and they can show us where we're at. I'm always making sure my dogs and cats and my horse can show me where I'm at. They can sense immediately when I'm having a hard time. And like the other day, for example, I was actually having a really good day, and I was feeling really full of love. So I went out into my yard, and I was a magnet. All my animals went straight to me because they wanted to just be in that love and they wanted to share love with me and receive and share and receive and share. And I mean, I'm literally sitting there with my cats and my goat and my horse and my dog all of me because they could feel that love that I was wanting to share. And they were just gobbling it right up and sharing it right back. And it was really special. And all of us were there together loving each other. It was lovely. And then there's those days where it's not like that for me. And I go up and maybe I'm frustrated. And they know that. And they'll come and they'll just be with me. They might mirror that back to me, perhaps. My horse will run around and my cat will scratch trees and my dog will be anxious and they're reading my energy. So then I can use that as a measuring tool. All right, now I need to calm down and meditate and get myself back in a better place. And then they mirror that back to me. Okay, now I've done it because they'll show me. Excellent. Yes, so question about the circle. Yes, if you join for a month, and there's two options. You can join for a month and try it out and see if you like it. And then you know it'll expire and you don't have to worry about it. Or you can sign up for monthly automatic payments. And again, you can cancel anytime, no problems. And that's absolutely fine. There's no requirements of you to remain. And it's a lovely community. And it's a sort of a different social media platform that's only the awakened community, mainly all of you here on this call. And I'm on there every day, all day long. It's a really great place to just stay connected. Lots of wonderful, wise folks and poetry and very, very wonderful. Yes, so Suzanne was happy with that heart command. I'm so glad. And she mentions that Slack, where we're on this forum, is a wonderful way to be connected every day over the daily meditation. We do a daily meditation every day and many other topics, including healing. She says, I highly recommend to anyone here who isn't already there, deep gratitude for this space and being a part of it. I want to be there even more. I'm so glad, Suzanne. Thank you for sharing that feedback because I sure love it too. And it's one thing when I'm saying, hey, come because it's so fun. But when other people are sharing it, that also adds a special twist to it, yes? Very good. Okay, so Elizabeth asks, can relaxation be an essence? Well, that's really interesting question because for a soul essence, I wouldn't necessarily tap into relaxation, but what's behind relaxation? Surrender. When you're in full body relaxation, you're surrendering to energy, aren't you? So I would say the essence is surrender. Play with that. See how that feels, Elizabeth. Very good. So Daki is asking a very good question. Krista also wanted to say that she loves the Slack platform too. So Daki's question is, as I have cleared a matrix lens of disappointment and all the myriad of programs associated, such as interconnectedness of evil, Providence has gifted me with a book recently in answer to my curiosity about dark energy and dark matter called We Had No Idea. Then, just as I dug into the 95% of reality that we don't know anything about, right? I was gifted again with the exposure to plasma physics, which claims to understand physics in a way that addresses all the unknowns of traditional quantum realities. So my request is that you address what is plasma physics, not necessarily today, and help us know the true nature of the cosmos, including this area of study that is clearly based on seeing the universe as electric and is, in my early understanding of it, consistent with the experience of source energy. Maybe you could have a New Earth conversation with a plasma physics scholar. That's a good idea. I've always felt that the universe is a personal friend that I know so little about, and I feel you can help us expand the field. Absolutely. So just my brief take on that. There's a lot of different branches of physics, and there's a lot of different thinking. For example, there is a lot of ideas that there is dark matter in the universe. And then there's some in the physics world who say that there isn't any dark matter at all. The fact is we really haven't agreed on much. We do know that there is an electric energetic to this universe. That's true. So worthwhile digging into the physics of our reality and how it relates to our higher consciousness. I think that would be a lovely thing we could tap into next time, because we won't have time today. But I'll keep that in mind, Daki, and I think it's a very clever and important topic because it just helps us to get what this universe is all about. And by golly, if we're going to have universal consciousness, we kind of need to know that stuff. So I'm quite happy to share my ideas about it and how I came to those conclusions. But to be honest, I'm always evolving too. So my opinion about this stuff is going to keep changing. I'm in the camp that there isn't any dark matter at all, and that dark matter is actually made up for in the gravity of spin. The spinning of particles and the spinning of atoms makes up for mathematically what we keep looking for as dark matter, because we're looking at gravity. Well, spin can create gravity. So when we look at a galaxy and we're measuring how dense it is, people say, well, there's all this matter that we can't account for, but it's not matter. It's the fact that in the mathematics, the spin hasn't been taken into account. So there isn't any dark matter, and they'll never find it. They still haven't found any possible, even slight iota that there's dark matter, and they're still looking. But they'll never find it because it's not there. That's my opinion, but we can dig into that more. So there's a little taste of what my opinion is. That's quite interesting stuff. And so some more feedback here, lovely feedback. Andrea says, I loved my time on Slack, and that's that platform I'm talking about where we can connect every day through the Circle membership. And on the website, Seer and Scientist, if you go to the Circle, and you'll see the Circle down lower on the page, on the home page, then that'll take you to the membership page. And it says, I loved my time on Slack during the processing course and will be joining again soon. We just did a really fun online week-long retreat on there all about emotional processing and how to do it every day. We're going to be doing it again, but we're going to do it for 7 weeks instead of 1 week because it was so rich and intense that we honestly needed 7 weeks to cover the material. But I'm going to be doing online retreats on the Slack platform every month. My next one will be in July, and I'm going to be talking about the art of psychic lenses. So I'm going to show you exactly how to move lenses that you don't want out of the way, how to use all sorts of things as energetic lenses to completely change your mindset and vantage point, and to be able to perceive new levels of information that you didn't have access to before. Sort of like when you put on a new pair of glasses, you can see things differently. New light, new sight, right? So if you walk into a room with black lights, suddenly you realize, oh, by golly, I'm covered in hair that I didn't see before. Because with new light, you have new sight. You can see new levels of information. So we're doing this to a certain extent subconsciously. I want to bring that art to you as a fully conscious way of functioning. And that's the online retreat we're going to do in July. And so that's going to be something we can look forward to. I'll be letting you know about that next time we meet in late June for our next circle. Very good. So yeah, I think everybody agrees that's a good topic. All right, I'll make sure to put that down on my notes. All right, so I just am so blessed by your presence here, and let me see if there's any last questions that I might be able to help you with. So several questions that came up on the Q&A panel here about anchoring. Krista, make sure you do those 4 things every day that I mentioned. Try to do more than one when you're feeling a lack of grounding. Not being able to feel like you can anchor fully is actually that sense of not being able to be fully welcomed by Mother Earth. So in your situation, replace that mothering that didn't work for you with the mothering of Mother Earth and get yourself into her arms physically. Sit under a tree barefoot, get yourself in salt water or water in general, and make sure you're spending as much time with your true mother as possible. That will help you to feel anchored so you can move into the next step. Laura asks a great question because I do have a farm. She said, do you know a good way to help my smallest chicken who's being snubbed by the other 3 chickens? Seems like a small issue, but it breaks my heart to see her wandering around by herself. So knowing chickens, Laura, depends on if your chickens are different breeds. Some breeds of chickens are loners and some are not. So that depends. And then if she's the same breed as the others, notice that she might be a different age. Some chickens will have a different sort of age pecking order. And beyond that too, she might actually just like being alone. I know it seems odd that a chicken would have a personality, but they sure do. And that being aloneness for her might be just what she wants. Sit with your heart open, because you might be, and this may or may not be true, but you might be projecting that sense of aloneness on her when that might not be what she's experiencing. If she's preening herself and eating food and walking around being a chicken, then that's a happy chicken. If she's looking dejected and kind of puffed up and just sitting there and not doing anything, that's an unhappy chicken. So sit with your heart open, remove any ideas about what might be happening, and just observe your chicken. See how she's feeling. And you might be surprised that she just might actually be a loner chicken that likes to be alone, and she's quite happy that way. If she's actually looking quite dejected, she might be sick, and you might want to give her some deworming. Some extra special treats like some mealworms could help bring the social sphere together with your chickens. And this kind of applies in general to a lot of different animals, but we do tend to project stuff on animals a lot. It's called anthropomorphization. We try to humanize the animal experience by projecting our feelings and ideas as social beings on animals. And sometimes it's in alignment and sometimes it's not. So I'd say start with a blank slate first, and this could be a useful tool for everybody. Start with a blank slate, be open to all possibilities, and observe and see what happens. See if it's actually your feelings of aloneness that might be needing to be addressed, Laura. You never know. But I love your chickens, love them, and I love you. Judy asks, what about tornadoes and flooding? Seems like the middle USA is close to an end. Hey, yeah, lots of different kinds of issues going around the planet. One of the things is it might seem like there's more than usual, but that's actually because we're more able to share information now than we did before. So it's kind of an illusion that there's more problems, like more natural disasters. It's that we have access to that news more swiftly. And so Gaia is doing her thing. She's shifting stuff, and the Midwest has often had many incredible issues. There was an interesting article I read about the turn of the century and how the building of the Wild West really started because the people who had settled in the Midwest were affected by a volcano that went off and caused the entire summer to be dark and black. So they literally lost all their crops and had to move to the West in order to survive. And, you know, that could happen to us any minute. That was a huge disaster that none of us really even know about because it's not shared in our history. So it's really something that, again, we will often project human consciousness realities on things like the globe. And that's something that we want to try to stop doing because the globe's got her own cycles and her own shifts and changes and disasters, which are necessary for her to continue to stay alive. Tectonic plates need to keep moving. Everything keeps shifting. Earthquakes happen because the plates are shifting, and that's the earth moving around. It's not because she hates us and wants to destroy our cities with an earthquake. So it's interesting how we might change our mindset a bit about disasters. And certainly we can just reach out with our love and our support to the people who are negatively affected by it. But this is something global that's part of our history, experiencing disasters, making big shifts in our cultures because of them is nothing new. But yeah, it's the Earth's going through a lot and she needs our help. The number one thing we can do at the moment, in my mind, is stop using single-use plastics. And that's really hard to do, but it's causing some serious issues with the ocean and our food chains in this world. Also, not overeating all the fisheries anymore. That's really important. If given a chance, we've discovered that the ocean will heal itself very quickly, but we need to give her a chance. So there's some things we can do every day. Don't beat ourselves up over it though, and try to really stay focused every day on moving any density out and bringing in more light. Yeah. Laura says, hey, I think I might be projecting and she might need deworming. Her eggs are coming out scratched on the surface. Ooh, yeah. Definitely give her a little bit of diatomaceous earth in their food for a few days, and that'll work nicely. Mix it in. Don't breathe it in because you don't want to breathe that in, but you can mix it in safely with a little tiny bit of water into their food, and then they'll eat it up, and that'll deworm them easily in a few days. And that's good for all animals and humans. All right, good. So Daki says something about chickens, which is great. And then we're going to do a heart command to end our time together today. But Daki mentions chickens have many fixed programs, but they can have big personalities. My friend has a pet chicken, and she's very attentive to Colette's physical needs and fixed instinctual programs, which are more basic or simplistic than our human consciousness. Then intimacy and friendship is revealed in this intuitive way of relating. There are blogs about people and their chickens, by the way. Yes, that's true. And I would say my chickens are my friends too, and they have a lot of personality. But just to honor them as they are, to honor and watch and observe, and just to be part of that nature is very wonderful. It's a great way to connect to yet another strand of consciousness coming through our chickens. How cool is that? All right, my friends. Yes, absolutely. Chickens have feelings and families just like us. They sure do. All right, my friends, let's come in to do a heart command, especially for welcoming more capacity for light so we can prepare for this next solstice. And you can use this heart command as often as you like. Maybe try it every day before the solstice and see how that helps you. So let's drop into our heart, and we're going to ask our dear hearts, dear heart, please lift any dark or dense energy, any trauma, any negative programming, any judgments, expectations, any attachments, and any resistance, any energies that are not from my true and pure soul essence, up, down, or out of my whole body and field now. Dear heart, please fill our whole bodies and fields with the pure connected energy to all the layers and grids of light, to higher global consciousness, galactic consciousness, and universal consciousness, unconditional love, and the true, pure light of my essence now. Ah, it felt so good. I hope it felt good for you too. And I'm so glad that we got to meet today. It's my favorite time to be with you. And I just want to give my love, my wonder to you today. I hope that we've been able to unwrap some great tools and ideas for you to use. And I can't wait to talk just after solstice. Let me check and see what day that is exactly. So we're going to meet next on the 23rd. So 2 days after solstice, we're going to meet next on the 23rd of June. And I will see you then. Bless you all, and thank you so much for coming today. And blessings to those who will listen to this replay later too, of course. Namaste.